So what I want to do today with you all is an empathy map from our intuitive body. So some of you I'm curious, just in the chat, if you've done empathy, if anyone's done an empathy map before, just put your name in. I'm just kind of curious if this is like a brand new thing or if people have done this before. And let's see, I need to mute some people. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so Neve has. All right. So an empathy map is a tool that comes from design thinking, and it's a tool that helps us to see some different perspectives of a thing. And we can do it with another person, we can do it with a problem, we can do it with an avatar, but we can also, I was thinking about this, we can also do it with any of the different parts of ourself. So in Eastern philosophy, which Ayurveda and yoga arise from, there's a articulation and separation of different bodies or different parts of the self called koshas. And one of these bodies is the self-reflective body, or the Vijnanamaya kosha. I'll type it in the chat. It's Vijnana. And that JNA part, that's it's wisdom, it's knowledge. And the VI part is reflective. So it's not just energy going out or learning that goes out, it's actually coming back in if you take the time to absorb it or look at it. It's like the moon light to the earth rather than the sun's light to the earth is the Vijnanamaya kosha. It's a refined, subtle intelligence. And what I find is that in modern culture, because we're so stimulated, right? Like, just think of how many, like, just for perspective, like, think of how many interactions you have a day, even if they're passive, even if it's with media, even if it's with social media or YouTube or watching something, or reading something or opening your mail. Think of how many interactions you have a day. And then think of 100 years ago, of how many interactions someone would have in a day. And then think back 1,000 years ago, which is just like a blip, right? In terms of the history of humanity, that we've had this technology. We've all had a physical body, an energy body, a mind, an intuitive body, and an essence body, or a bliss body is what they call it in yoga. We've had that technology for way more than 1,000 years, right? But now think of just the amount of stuff coming in your just everyday life. And then what that would have been like 1,000 years ago. And then maybe even go back 10,000 years, which is still just like a blip, right? In the evolution of the human being. And just get a sense of like, okay, this body, this intuitive body, requires time to have attention, right? All of the bodies require time. So your physical body requires time. Your essence body, your Anandamaya kosha, bliss body, that requires time. Your thinking body requires time where you're actually thinking and feeling your emotions. Your energy body requires time. Like, all these bodies require time and attention and time, to me, is more or less synonymous, because if you're attending to something, you're doing it in real time. Okay, so because there's so many more little things that come into our day and that come into our eyes, our ears, our emotional body, we might find that we aren't having just time to watch the clouds go by. And I really like that expression of watching the clouds go by. It's an expression, right? Of like, I'm sure it's in every culture. There's some expression about just more or less like sitting around, lying on the ground, sitting next to a tree, going for a walk, and just kind of watching the sky, watching the clouds go by. Now, when we're watching the clouds go by or doing a very similar activity that's not necessarily the same as meditation, because that's different than watching the clouds go by. That's really just like not really watching a thing at all. But watching the clouds go by, that to me is very much what the intuitive body is really allowing a processing or a digestion of, right? A digestion of what? Of like all the things that are happening. So that so that it's not just wisdom, it's not just learning. Like if I pick up a book, I'm learning, I'm actively learning, engaging my mental, emotional body, the mind. It's called the monomaya kosha. It's that level of body in Eastern philosophy. But this is different than that. This is allowing it to kind of settle and process and digest. Right? So that it's a whole other thing that happens than just active learning. It's not just like the sun shining knowledge on you. It's this reflective part. It's this ability to actually like think, to create subtle connections, and it's passive. The intuitive body is much often more, I would say, passive than the mind, which is more active. So in the passivity, it's receptive. So it's not like you need, like when you're watching the clouds go by, like you're not really doing anything, right? Like it's not like this, I'm reading a book or I'm listening to a lecture. It's more of a, something else is happening in the neural pathways of your brain and in your nervous system. And it's quite relaxing, right? To just watch the clouds by. So it has a bhavana or a feeling essence of ease. It's ease. It's an easeful activity. So activating the Vijnanamaya kosha is easeful. And when we're not in ease, so if we're too busy or there's just too much stuff coming in, then we lose access to the Vijnanamaya kosha, the reflective knowledge, the intuitive body, which I think is dangerous. I just think it's kind of it's dangerous for, if we see an entire global population losing access to the intuitive body, it's a little dangerous. It's dangerous for the planet. It's dangerous for each other. It's dangerous for ourselves. And so with empathy mapping, what we can do is we can start to just practice listening. And we're going to do it, I would say, in a mildly active way. So we're going to do a practice that does this. So what you're going to need is a piece of paper, and you can see I'm a little distracted. I'm trying to get back on my desktop here. I've had a series of weird incidents that have left me in this temporary computing situation that's not going to work. So just give me a second. And if you can, on your piece of paper, you are going to just make a big X across the whole thing. And then in the middle, you're going to draw yourself. You're just going to draw your stick figure self. And that's you. Don't take up too much room, but that's you in the middle. All right. Now on the top, you're going to write thinking and feeling. So in that top triangle, you're going to write thinking and feeling. And then you're going to listen for a moment to your intuitive body. And just listen to what your intuitive body is thinking and feeling about your habits, right? Just about like your daily rhythm, about like how you're doing, how you're eating, sleeping, how you're feeling, like how are you doing? To just take a moment and feel into what your intuitive body is expressing. To the triangle to the right, what you're seeing. What is your intuitive body seeing? Seeing it's this inner insight. Like, what is the insight of your intuitive body? In the bottom triangle is speaking and doing. So your intuition is speaking to you. What is it saying? With doing, with your intuitive body, it's going to look back on your past activities, but also like forward on desire. Like, what is I'm more curious about is like, what does your intuitive body want to do? And one of the ways to check in with this is around speed, like the general speed of life, your pace, your rhythm. Like, what does the intuitive body feel about rhythm, the rhythm of your life right now. It's like doing too much, doing too little. And then on the left, in hearing, what is your intuitive body hearing? In hearing, it's attending to your attention, like what is interesting. So lastly, around the pain and the gain, and if there's any room at the bottom of your paper on another piece of paper is fine, is what is the pain for your intuitive body? What is it afraid of, worried about, concerned with? And then what is the gain? The hope, the forecast, the positive forecast. And now just take a moment to absorb that. And you might do that with eyes closed or with your gaze diffused. And an exhale, and just allow yourself to really absorb what all that was. So we just looked at some different perspectives of sensing from your intuitive body. And now just feel your whole visceral body and receive whatever communication from this self-reflective wisdom body that's always available. And notice the ease. And then allow your awareness to go back to your paper, and whatever words really stood out. If there's just a few words that just stand out, that are just like the general message, highlight that or circle that and simplify that as much as possible into a simple statement. Sometimes these types of statements they often have names. In Sanskrit, you might call it a Mahavakya, or like a great Vak is the power of speech. She's a goddess in the Hindu tradition. And when speech is divine, when it's naming the essence or the essential truth, it's great. And that's Maha. It's great speech. This is where sutras come from. It's like the absolute simplest way to communicate. So you're going to have this Mahavakya, or this simple statement. You could say in modern language, it's like a power statement. And that's something you could put on a sticky note. You could put it in a few places to remind yourself through the day of like what your intuitive body is reminding you of. So remind, that word of remind is very much a Vijnana Maya Kosha type of a word. So mind is that jnana, and the re is that reflective. So just reminding that. Oh yes. Now, reminding yourself of that, like what actions should that lead to this week? So now we're just going to forecast habits based on that, based on whatever your intuitive body is telling you. And just, and this doesn't, like, don't make this harder than it is, please, because your intuitive body is easeful. It would never make it harder than it needs to be, right? All right. So that's our little exercise. In Living Ayurveda, it's super practical, it's super down to earth, and we want it to make a difference in your life, honestly, the moment you start. Hi, it's Kate Stillman, and I'm going to tell you about how the Living Ayurveda course works and why it works the way it does work. A part of my natural personality is that I'm a futurist. I'm an innovator. I can't help it. It's just the way that my awareness works and has always worked. So I'm always looking at how do we make Ayurveda practical to solve for our biggest problems, at home, and nourishing ourselves and getting deep rest and passing on the habits to those who our lives affect. If we understand our habits are truly not our own, we say, hey, whose habits affect me and whose habits am I affecting? And can we align those habits with the kind of radiant longevity that we want to experience, right? Year by year, decade by decade by decade by decade in our road ahead. The other core part of my philosophy is around
collective leadership. And I take those two words very seriously. I see how there's a whole next level of open-minded integration where we look at the questions that you're bringing, the conversations you're wanting to have, and we build that into our leadership model, help lead and guide our community in the direction of addressing the deepest, most potent issues that'll help us get the greatest traction in growth and transformational evolution. So that's a lot of, my philosophy on living Ayurveda. I look at our planet, I look at the stresses to our ecosystems, the stresses to our human population, our human culture, and that's what we're solving for. So that's how the whole course is geared. I take my community very seriously, become part of my heart, you become part of my people, and that's how the course works. I mean, that's why it works too, is it's even though we're all coming in from all over the world, we have an experience of deep connection, deep community, and evolution together. All right, I hope that clarifies some of your questions around the Living Ayurveda course.
It's interesting with the third eye, when that just, I often don't, it's interesting. In Living Ayurveda, we talk more about chakras and less so in Body Thrive. I think I have a video I can post for you guys on chakras for those who just want more reference.
Mm-hmm.
So with the third eye, one of the ways I was taught this that really stuck is the cave of Brahman is another term for the third eye. And it's like often the super, it's like we have like this often very superficial experience of the eye being on the forehead. And it's not, it's like way back, right? Connected more to the pineal gland. It's like way back in the head. And so it's seeing from behind your eyes. So then everything that's kind of coming in your eyes seems actually like very superficial. When you see, I've also been trained to like see from behind myself. That's a meditation practice. It's a way that you can practice perspective. And what it does is it allows a much more relaxed inner body, because we're just like basically we're less in the world. We're less like just reactive. And it's more acting from that ground of being or from that deeper presence. And that's what the cave of Brahman is teaching. Same thing, like back body sight, back body presence. There's a lot of the way that most of us have been trained to look outside of ourselves for intelligence, for wisdom, for guidance, for medical information. for like kind of everything, right? And so this is the Vijnana Kosha is teaching the opposite. It's like, oh no, you have complete innate wisdom unto yourself. So tune in, and then let that direct attention to what you need to learn outside of yourself, because there's the universal and then there's the relative. So on the universal level, we're all knowing, omniscient, eternal beings, right? In this system of thinking, in this philosophy, which is it's a nice thing to try on. It's like, if that's new, if that's like not something that you've experienced before, it's like, it's cool to have that experience, to check it out. And then the relative is like, oh, I need to learn this skill, like how to get whatever, my computer to connect to my tablet today, which seems to be an issue. That's a relative. It's in the relative. I need to learn. I need to figure that out. My universal perfect self still has a gap right there, right? So the third eye is connecting the universal. It's between the crown chakra, universal wisdom, and the body. And that's why it has insight in both directions. So it's connected to the deep presence of eternal beingness and the peace that goes with that, the ease that goes with it. And that's why when we see from the cave of Brahman, we're less just reactive to like whatever's showing up right now. So what'll happen as we recognize what the Vijnana Kosha, what the intuitive body is valuing, right? Like what it wants the self to experience more of. The self is like all of you with all the bodies, the self to experience more of. You can also notice, as we're talking through this, like what are the triggers that actually like trigger into the pattern? So in Wendy's example would trigger into like needing to preference outer wisdom as opposed to inner wisdom. In Misha's example, it's like, I'm not doing it right, to like, oh, I'm in the process of becoming. So what are what triggers the outdated pattern? What are the triggers to the outdated pattern? So just note that, because you've got like the what it is. On the last call, we spent quite a bit of time looking at the 5 triggers, the 5 habit triggers. So there's the emotion, other people, a time, a place, a preceding action. So you might just look at that of like, when I'm doing what, that triggers that old or that outdated relationship of not listening essentially to my intuitive body, of like not allowing, not presencing, not putting time, attention to that. So if I know what those triggers are, then I can at least catch myself in the act, right? I can actually you can use a negative trigger to trigger a new thing, which is kind of cool, because we can often assume that some of those negative triggers aren't just going to like poof, vanish after this call's over, right? If you're human. Right? But they're in pattern. They're what the yogis would call like, there's some skara. They're a patterned, conditioned part of your personality, of your body's personality, your body's cravings and desires, which are always based on yesterday and the day before and the day before that. So if you know what the triggers are, then you can choose like, oh, I'm going to use that trigger to trigger a intuitive body experience. What's happening in my perspective, and I was trained in Ayurveda now. It's been 20 years. So I've worked with a lot of people over time. And there's really an advantage to like doing a lot of the same thing repetitively for decades, because you see patterns, right? Like I think of anything that you guys have done, like some of you have parented for decades or grandparent, like you see patterns, you see cause and effect. So when depression is in Ayurveda, there's a very different understanding, I would say. I haven't run into this yet. And it probably, I don't know, maybe it's coming out of emerging science now that I'm just not up on from allopathic perspective. But in Ayurveda, there's understanding of the relationship between prana and ojas. And now prana is activity, essentially. It's like, it's energy, it's energy and it's activity. And ojas is the immune field. So it's like a subtle, essential field that creates resilience and self-knowing, so that all cells know the self. When all cells know the self, you don't get things like autoimmune. When all cells know the ecosystem, you don't get things like allergies, right? It's like, it's right relationship between self, what is unique individual, what is just you, and outside of you being in right relationship. And that's all part of a little 4-letter word called ojas, right? It's like, it's a tall order. Ojas is a tall order. Now, ojas can be drawn like a bucket, like a container. And the more activity you put in that container, if you put too much activity in the container cracks. And when the container cracks, the energy starts to leak out. It goes out of the container. So then what do? We usually put more activity in, more energy in the container, but then that actually pushes those cracks, and those cracks get bigger and more energy starts to come out. And this is a negative feedback loop that creates depletion. In the natural emotional state of depletion, first there's anxiety, just of like, I got to keep doing more. But sometimes if you have a lot of fire, if you have a lot of intensity in your personality, you might not feel it as anxiety at all. You might just feel it as drive. I feel it as drive, but underneath it, I call it existential anxiety. It's like, do more. So the cracks get bigger and more energy is coming out. And then the secondary state is depression, because in my experience, it's coming from it's actually like, it's the physical body kind of morning premature breakdown. It's just like, ugh. And so it's also, the depression is creating, actually, in this sense, a positive feedback loop, saying like, I'm not going to give you the excitement. I'm not going to give you the adrenaline rush, the adrenaline addiction anymore, because there's no more left.
Mhm.
And so now you get to experience with, is actually similar to the grounded being, which is just like pretty mellow, always there. And it taps you back into that subtler level of energy that does not come from activity. It comes from inactivity. And so what happens then is people medicate, or they do something that closes off the intuitive body in order to feel at least the adrenaline rush again, because the adrenaline rush felt normal. The adrenaline addiction felt normal. That was like, hey, I could keep it going. And it was a little more exciting because it was moving. Whereas depression doesn't have that movement. So I really trust the wisdom of your intuitive body. And I trust that we're totally on the right track because of the fear. Fear points more to vata, which is prana. So it's called prana vayu or prana vata. So it's pointing more to the root of the emotion of it. Actually, the whole thing was driven by fear. And now you're getting more at the level of like, oh, this is the existential fear. Like this is the deep level of it, which is great. You have to root to rise. Like if you're like Misha's little sprout has got to get rooted in order to unfurl. And it's the same thing with this. It's like, you got to really process that I am, period. And then I am okay, because who I am is ultimately the stuff of the universe, and the universe is okay. And that feeling sense, when I was saying like the Vijnanamaya Kosha, it vibrates at the emotional quality of ease. And that ease is not needing to be supported by things of the world. It's innately supported. And when you feel that, like when that becomes the normal, because it's just attunement into what is, it's just a different plane of like, oh, that's there too. I can just tune my radio signal into that. The ojas will rebuild. Commit to the habits. Like whatever
yes.
And that's when it's like when that just is like the non-negotiable, like what is now non-negotiable, because the stakes are high. And so with this type of, with actually in Ayurveda, like with any type of depression, one of the most basic things to do is walk into the rising sun. And so that requires like getting out of bed early and moving, which will be grounding prana and building ojas at the same time, and you walk towards the rising sun. So if like just one thing, like one keystone habit. So the keystone habit supports all the other habits. So with depression, this is the keystone habit. Because what happens when you see the sun rise? It's a new day.